So last year I took a motorcycle trip through Colorado and Arizona, and I brought my Pentax 67 with me. And the reason involved in photography is to interact with as many souls as possible and photograph the first time we met. That's the long and the short of it. I love people and I want to photograph people and make them feel good. And I want my interaction with them to be uplifting and for them to leave their time with me feeling better than before they met me. And so for all the people who are asking me, what do I say to people to get them to let me photograph them? The best I can tell you is that I change myself on the molecular level to become somebody that they can perceive as someone they can trust and who's going to enhance their life. And so that's the best I can tell you is have pure intentions when you're approaching people to photograph them, because even the least savvy people will be able to detect if you have any sort of ulterior motives. And so I'm very happy to share with you all the people who I interact with on the trip, because they span the whole gamut from ex-Tibetan monk or a Tibetan shop owner to a lot of hippies on mushrooms. So here we go. So these two girls were on my same rafting trip in Colorado, and obviously they're striking, and I think they're with their dad, and I didn't approach them right away, and I didn't feel like the timing was right when the trip was over, so I passed, and I just had to let them go. And then about an hour later, we ended up at the same restaurant, and I hit them up, and they said they were leaving the next day, so sorry they couldn't do it. But I got a call later that day, and they said, hey, let's meet before we leave. And I thought that was a real badass move on their part. And so we met the next morning somewhat early and shot these photos. And if you're noticing, they're all, this isn't the ideal time of day. I think it was 10 or 11 in the morning. And so I shot all of them in open shade, one stop over, and then bringing it back slightly for their skin tone. So I think these are shot or exposed about a quarter or a half a stop underexposed. This was just in a tent, like one of those dining tents that's prevalent right now during COVID. So then I switched to a roll of HP5, and my eye goes towards black and white. I look at the tones. The shadows are so much deeper. These are just more interesting photographs to me. This is the one photograph, I think there's maybe a couple, where I shot on a slightly high key background, but there's still some detail in that background, some tone. And that's what you always want to try to do, is put, if they're backlit by the sun, try to put some sort of backdrop behind them that's going to not be just pure white. I think this was actually the first shot I did of them, just to kind of feel them out, and you can see that they aren't quite all the way there yet. I love watching the transformation actually from the first shot to the 10th shot, because they're wildly different people in the photos. I really love these girls. We've kept in contact since then, and they're incredible. So I'm going to add in a couple of photos that are of non-humans. Just talk about exposure. So this is a white horse taken at golden hour backlit. And so I want to retain that detail in the white of the horse. And so I'm starting at one stop overexposed and then bringing it back. So I think those actually ended up at box speed. And the black shadows in the bottom of the brown horse, I can accept that, because that's actually what it looked like to the human eye. Those dark shadows down there were that dark, and that's my goal, is to have it replicate what it actually looked like in real life. The next photo is shot directly at the sun in the background, and so those shadows become much deeper. And so those ones, I think, stayed at one stop over to retain that detail in the front of the horse, because I don't want the front of that brown horse to be black. That would not be pleasurable to look at. So that remained at one stop over to retain those dark shadows. So these next two photos are examples of exactly what a spot meter is made for, is to meter something far off in the distance that an ambient reading may not be accurate for. And so when you point a spot meter at something, the reading you're going to get back is telling you that that thing you pointed at is going to be gray. And my goal was to retain the detail in the clouds. So I pointed the spot meter at the bottom part of that lower cloud, and bingo bango, there you have gray and all the detail left in those clouds. Now, the trade-off is that the rocks are going to be a little bit darker than they would to the naked eye. And so that's fine with me. I think the rocks look cool as hell, real contrasty like that. Because when you see the next photo where I pointed the spot meter at the rock, rocks look more accurate to what you would see to the eye, but now look at that sky. It's kind of washed out. And short of doing a lot of dodging and burning and crap like that, which, you know, if you want to spend your time in Photoshop doing that, more power to you. I don't want to do that. And so that's how you get stuff to match your vision in camera to save yourself from doing a lot of post. This girl was the cook in the little dive bar we stopped at in Flagstaff, Arizona, who absolutely had no idea what a stunner she was. And so, you know, when I look at somebody, I can tell within about 5 or 10 seconds if they have been photographed a lot before and if they have any idea what their face looks like. And this girl was a no on both of those. So she was obviously a superstar. I went up to her and asked her if I could do her photos. I was on a, you know, traveling photo journey, and she agreed right away. We walked over to the doorway and popped off one shot, and bam, she nailed it. She's a real rock star. So when you come down the hill from Flagstaff, that takes you to Sedona, and that's where I met this girl in a little gem shop. And I mean, look at her. She's almost not even human. She's so damn beautiful. And so I approached her in the shop, asked her if I could do her photo. She said, yeah, let me finish shopping. And we popped out the back door, and this is taken right behind the gem shop in the little open air shopping center. Same thing. I popped off one shot at her, said thank you. She told me she had just canceled all of her social media, so she would look me up when she joins up again. And I've never heard from her since. So as far as I know, she's never seen this photo, which kind of drives me mad. So these photos are nothing short of a miracle. I ran into an old friend randomly as I was driving down the street in Sedona on my motorcycle. She texted me and said, did I really just see you on your motorcycle in Sedona? And I hadn't seen her in a couple of years. So I told her, I want to go to a vortex, I want to see hippies, and I want to hear chanting. She said, I know where a whole gaggle of them are. And she gave me directions, and off we went in the middle of the night to climb this hill. And lo and behold, there was exactly what I was asking for, was a whole bunch of people howling at the moon, all on mushrooms, playing drums, having the best night of their lives. And so, you know, this is a really good example of being able to read your subject. They were on a completely different wavelength than I was, and I knew it. And they actually didn't even acknowledge my existence for the first maybe half an hour that I was there. And so I waited for my window, and once I saw that the mood had changed and my vibe had changed, I went in and I approached them and I said, can I do your photos? And they all agreed. And the fact that these are in focus is incredible to me, because the way I got my focus was having my friend hold a damn iPhone flashlight on their forehead on a moonless night, so I could and you know, if you look through a Pentax 6.7 prism, it's not real bright, but I did the best I could, and lo and behold, I nailed it. And so I really love these photos, because it's almost like being invited into a little secret society that not many people get to be a part of. So I really appreciate all these people for letting me in. It was an honor. So this was the last photo of the trip, not by choice, but it couldn't have been more perfect in its disaster. This was the owner of a little Tibetan gift shop, and I just loved his mood. When I met him, he was so excited to meet me and talk about my camera. And I asked if I could do his photo, and we walked out the door, and I did this shot, and I heard that horrible crunch as I started to advance the film lever, and I knew the camera was done. And I don't know if any of you have been to Sedona. I highly recommend you go if you haven't. But I was zapped by the vortexes, and the fact that the camera broke right after the last roll, I just smiled and knew that it was the perfect time for this photo journey to end. And luckily it wasn't a permanent and costly fix. It was actually pretty simple. But it was a perfect ending to this trip, and I really had an incredible time. So I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will talk to you later. Bye, guys.